Hey, crew, welcome back to the Skippy Report. Tonight I have Lorin Walker Madsen, outlaw country musician, and we're talking to him from Salt Lake City, Utah. Hey, welcome on the show, Lorin.
Hey man, it's great to be on. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've seen each other.
It's been a minute. It's been a handful of years now at this
Yeah,
point for sure.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, we were just, as we were setting up the show, we were talking about doing this live because maybe right now I'm supposed to be at Lorin's house visiting him and his little buddy Liam and beautiful wife Jen. So, anyways, hopefully in the future we'll get to do that.
It's gonna happen, and hopefully sooner than later.
Yeah. Now, one of the things I have about this podcast, we call it Gear, Beer, and Anything Weird. But my main thing is to have conversations with really interesting, diverse people. And I was thinking, you know what? Lorin is an outlaw country musician. And maybe you can give us a little bit of background of where you're from, where you grew up, how you got into music. Because I know you and Josh, Lorin is Josh Madsen's younger brother. And Josh plays in a band too. Oh, he hasn't lately, though, I don't think. Has he?
No, we haven't. Not since before the pandemic. Yeah.
Right.
It's been a
Yeah.
minute.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little more about yourself, Lorin.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I'm from Denver, Colorado. That's where I was born. Lived there for a brief stint when I was a little kid, and moved around a little bit. With the family when I was younger, and we ended up in Salt Lake City when I was about 9 years old, and I've been here ever since. Grew up here, went to school, and everything here. So met my wife here. She went to rival high school, and so we kind of grew up in the same area, and so I love it out here. I love being in Salt Lake. We've been married about 6 years, and been together for about twice that long. So
Wow.
I don't see myself leaving anytime soon. We've got a little boy who's almost 2, and as you mentioned, my little buddy Liam. And so we're just, we love it out here in Utah. And I've been a musician since I was a teenager, I guess, that, talking about outlaw country and all that. So been playing in bands since I was a teenager, and found myself just kind of in that roots music, country singer songwriter stuff probably, I don't know, probably closer to 10 years, but really started doing my own project about 7 years ago. So yeah, based out of Utah, songwriter, outlaw country, roots music. I mean, but yeah, I love it out here. It's good to be here in Utah.
So
And we got some good snow for the guys who like to drop knees and ski too. So.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. Do you ski?
And I'm Josh's younger brother, Josh Madsen. Yeah, despite the fact that I look road worn and haggard, and he's in great shape, and most people think that I'm his older brother, which is ridiculous in my opinion. But anyways, yeah, Josh, yeah, from the Free Hill Life, telemark skier. We all grew up on skis. Pretty much due to our mom.
Right.
Our mom is a great skier. She her dad, I think, I'll always remember the story she telling me when I was a kid, and they got us into lessons really young and whatnot. But I mean, her dad taught them how to ski, and I think they had the rope tow going on back when she was learning, and he wouldn't even buy him a pass for the rope tow. He would make them hike up and down the hill until they learned how to ski. So she became a really good skier and passed it on to us, but I've never really been on a proper set of telemark skis in my life. I've always been just, in alpine skis, and, in high school, I mean, I would ski, leave school to ski. We just, growing up in Salt Lake, we were so lucky to be just so close to so many great places to get out. So, I worked at a resort for a season or two in high school, and, I love it just as, in a different way than Josh. But now kind of helping those guys out with the shop this season. I keep telling Josh, I'm like, man, one of these days soon I got to get up and get on a proper pair of telemarks.
Oh, I won't hold that against you, but you know what? Skiing is skiing. Today, when I was talking on the other podcast, we were talking about, I had a whole list of things to talk about. and we didn't do a whole lot of them. But we were talking about getting outside during the pandemic, and this guy Adam, Mr. Adam X on Instagram, he's talking about like, what is a skier? He's got buddies who ski 2 days a year, and you know what? They're skiers, and we ski an insane amount. We don't care what, going down the hill on your bum, on a toboggan. It's all good, man. You're getting outside and that sort of stuff. So yeah, we won't hold that to you. So
all right, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm a skier, at heart, and I've been wanting to get out more. Obviously, life gets in the way, and when you're not, running a shop or making a living doing it, it's a little different. But I love it, and I'll always love to ski. So
right.
yeah.
Well, and you're a big outdoor enthusiast too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if it's a passion, but the other thing that I see when you post and that sort of stuff is you're fly fishing.
Yeah. I love to fly fish. I love to fish.
Yeah.
But I've really, really taken after fly fishing kind of dove into it the last 5 years or so.
Right.
But really the last 3 or 4, I've really, really fallen in love with fly fishing a lot.
And what's made you fall in love with fly fishing?
Well, kind of like just to back up a little bit with it was, when my wife and I got married in 2015, her work took us down to Phoenix, Arizona. So we were down there for a couple of years and knew that it was temporary. And, I was down there. I didn't really know a whole lot of people at the time. And there were all these ponds. I mean, just like these urban ponds, I would see all the time. And somehow I just, I had just and they have a Bass Pro Shop, just a one of those massive Bass Pro shops, which we don't have a Bass Pro in Utah at all.
Really?
We don't have one in Utah. No.
Wow.
So we have a Cabela's, which I think they're the same company.
Yeah.
But we don't have a Bass Pro. Anyways. So I was like, I'm going to get out. I've never fished for bass. I'll get out and maybe check it out, and I'll hit one of these ponds one night or whatever. And one day, I caught a really nice bass, and I was just kind of hooked on that. And I'd get out and fish while we were there for a couple of years, and started taking a rod on tour. And I would, hit ponds all over the Midwest and whatever, and some off time. So when we moved back, my mom got me a fly rod, actually, just randomly when I was, for Christmas. She's like, oh, I know you've been fishing, and, now that you're living at home, maybe you'd like to, get into fly fishing. I have an uncle who's been a really, avid fly fisherman for years. And then also Jenny's dad, my father-in-law, he's a really, just a big fly fishing enthusiast. So anyways, I kind of started just poking around with it. And I probably fished for like 5 months without a bite, no fish looking at anything. They didn't want anything to do. I wasn't doing it right, I'm sure, at all. But it was the 4th of July. I was out with a buddy of mine on a section of river that was by some property he had, and he got me into my first fish on the fly, and that was kind of it. It just was a different way of catching fish. And once it kind of started to click, it's definitely a little bit more of an art form, the way you're presenting a fly to the fish and kind of what needs to go into the cast. And there's just so much more with it. But that's also what I liked about bass fishing too. And just kind of fishing for that kind of fish too, is there's jigging, you're kind of a little bit more active, getting out on the, the bank and sitting with a cooler and a beer and just, throwing the rod in and letting it sit, whatever. Totally fine, and that's a good time and everything. But I like to move. I like to be walking. I like to be hiking with it and kind of moving. So fly fishing really just has all of that. It's a hunt. It's a presentation. You're really kind of hunting the water and, changing your flies and changing your, diameter of your leader of your line. Is just so much with it. And then, the pandemic just kind of forced me into starting to tie in my own flies.
Oh, no way. Nice.
I had more time. Yeah. So I had more time, and that was a rabbit hole as I've really kind of fallen in love with the sport and in fly fishing. I was like, man, I know that's something I would love to do. I just wasn't really sure how to get into it. And then, my wife bought me kind of a get started kind of a kit. And then I just kept going from there. And so I've just been really, when the little guy's down on a nap and I've got an hour or two, I'll go tie some flies and stuff and, at night. But I just love it. I don't know what it is. I mean, catching fish on the fly is just totally different. I got into a really nice brown trout on a local river here a few years back that had me running like 50 yards upstream and then another 50 backstream. And once I got that fish to the net, that was the first good fish that I really brought in on the fly. And from there, I was really hooked at that point. Nice. So, and you get to be outside. And that's kind of the other thing with it too, is just, it's, where all these fish live, it's a pretty cool place to go hang out and walk around,
exactly.
And, so I love it. So
you would love it up here where we live. There's a river that runs through our town called the Ganaraska River, and it's well known throughout North America for rainbow trout and salmon.
Okay.
So around mid-April, we'll have the rainbow trout run, and like some of them are monsters because we're right off the shore of Lake Ontario. And then the salmon, it's crazy. And then
so they run up through the river.
Yeah, they come up the river.
So a lot of them just come
spawn.
Up through the lake. Yeah.
We have a natural population of salmon in our lake. There's a young girl who I used to teach who's become a professional fisherman in the last year or so, and it's been pretty cool. She's going to be on the podcast. Awesome. I think during spring break. She says she's so busy with school and fishing and that sort of stuff. But yeah, she's out on the lake right now. She got back on a couple of days ago, and they're out there fishing for salmon. We have a big, huge salmon derby that runs all year long, or I would say all season long. And, there's boats for prizes and trucks for prizes and that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, I haven't fly fished for any salmon yet. That's definitely some bucket list. And just fishing up in Canada, I mean, I'm itching for, I've told you, like we've said a little bit, I mean, there's so much great water up there. So it'll happen.
Yeah. Well, when I was inviting you to my cottage, my dad used to fly fish for bass in our lake. And I remember one time he caught a 6-pound largemouth bass. And it took him about 30-35 minutes to get it in the boat. It was crazy.
That sounds like a blast.
Oh, yeah.
And it was on the fly?
It was on the fly, yep.
Which is probably why it took him 30 minutes to get it in.
Oh,
I mean, there's just something about it that, I mean, you just can't crank them in. You got to play the fish. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
Said, you got the fly. You got to come my way now, buddy.
I would love it. Yeah, there's actually, there's so many spots we could talk about up there that are just, I've been, making lists for a couple of years now, just bucket lists, rivers and lakes, and a lot of them are up in Canada.
Yeah. Well, that's like
you guys got some.
We're thinking spots. I asked Sean. I said, we're traveling through really great fly fishing areas. When we're going through Montana and Wyoming and Idaho. Sure. I said, what do you think about us taking up fly fishing? Because I have a friend who's a fly fisher, and he's got a buddy who owns a shop. And Sasha said,
"Oh, okay.
He'd send us his buddy's way and get us set up with kind of beginner outfits, see how we like it and that sort of stuff." And Sean wasn't negative about it, so I thought that's kind of cool. Another activity that we can do. Let's park the trailer and do some fly fishing, man. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Well, it's a good time. Even I'm blessed in the, just that, like, Jenny comes from that in her own family. I mean, her dad used to take the kids around on trips and, haul them around, different places so he could fish, and just growing up around it. And also she has 4 other sisters and 1 younger brother. And so her brother, being the only boy, I mean, him and her dad, they fish a lot together, right. Those two. And so those guys, I'm blessed to live in a fishy family. Those guys, they love it. And so we're always talking about it. And, any chance we get, he's got some property in a really nice place, pretty close to West Yellowstone up in Idaho, close to a place called Island Park. And some of the fishing up there is just incredible. So we look forward to, kind of that springtime, like you said, kind of the spawns start to happen and things warm up and the fly fishing kind of turns on. But anytime you and Sean come down this way, we would love it. Every now and again, I can get Jenny out there, and and it's a good time. We have a great time.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
fun.
I know my girls, they're huge avid fishermen too. And I love
Yeah,
it.
you've sent me some great pictures from over the years of you guys catching some great fish.
Yeah, my favorite stories are Bronwyn going up to her husband's cottage and she's out fishing him.
That's how it happens sometimes.
Yeah,
That's how it is.
yeah, yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, keep me posted. I would love to do it with you
Oh
guys
yeah,
when you come back down this way.
yeah,
That'd
for
be fun.
sure.
That'd be great.
Now I have a question for you. I was watching the Grammys the other
Sure.
night with my daughter, and I was
Yeah.
listening to the country music,
Mm.
and I said to Bronwyn, I said, "This doesn't sound like the country music I know." But I'm kind of think maybe you can tell the listeners the difference between country music and outlaw country music.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and gosh, yeah, that's man, what a loaded question. It's
Sorry.
you know, and I didn't even catch much of the Grammys myself, but kind of the thing with country music nowadays, a lot of people call the country music. It just really sounds to me and to a lot of people that would consider themselves maybe country music fans. A lot of the newer stuff sounds kind of just like pop.
Yeah.
It just sounds like pop music. And to me, country music, when I think about it, and I grew up playing in punk rock bands, don't get me wrong, I didn't grow up, by any means just like, born into country music, but
Right.
my dad, growing up around him, he's a music lover, loved classic rock, and every now and again, I mean, a lot of that I remember being in the car with him, growing up, and he loved a lot of the classic rock. And so with that, you would kind of get this, intertwined with some great classic country music,
Right.
Waylon Jennings, Johnny Cash, a lot of that stuff. And so to me, that's really the country music. And to a lot of people, maybe older generations, I mean, I'm only 35, but a little bit ahead of my time. Yeah, I mean, the Johnny Cash and Merle Haggards and Willie Nelson, Johnny Paycheck, George Jones, is kind of, to me, those are that's country music.
Right.
And when you're looking at stuff now, Keith Urban,
Right.
Blake Shelton, stuff like that. Yeah, there's hints of country music for sure. There's some twang maybe in their voice. Maybe there's a cool lick or a riff on the guitar and they're
Right.
playing it on a telly and it sounds really cool and kind of, country. But, that the stuff today, that's really considered the outlaw country stuff, which is kind of what I get branded with, is just kind of the guys who are today kind of following in the footsteps of like the Johnny Cash and the George Jones and the guys that really love that old sound,
Right.
that are trying to kind of, pave a new way for it and kind of keep that alive, without, drenching it in this auto tune and pop and, fake drum beats and, all kinds of stuff, to each their own, and I love a good pop song and I love, there's some great stuff that's on the radio and whatnot. But, to me, a lot of the really cool new stuff that's outlaw country, there's guys like Whitey Morgan or Cody Jinks. These are kind of some heavy hitting guys that are popular out there. Those guys, they kind of are way more in that outlaw scene and vibe. And to me, kind of the outlaw country thing is just kind of, the guys who are newer that are trying to keep that classic sound, but just kind of doing it their own way, I guess. And so, it's tough. I mean, the country music today to me is just a lot of pop. It just sounds really
Right.
polished and shiny. But yeah, there's a lot to, like, like I said, it's kind of a loaded question because, a lot of people would say maybe what I do is outlaw country. Some other people might call it alt country.
Right.
Some people might call it red dirt country, which is, they're all just these different, kind of different subgenres of each other, really.
See, I'd be like the gangster guy. I call it like the OG country because that's what my dad used to listen to or listens to, and it's like, that's old school, man.
It is, and it is. And for me, it was like, like I said, I grew up listening to so many different kinds of stuff, and then when I started really writing more songs and in my 20s and later into my 20s and starting to really, just like find this love for like the simplicity. I
Right.
think like I'm a pretty simple guy, I like to think. And so these songs I just was like relating to, I was, swinging a hammer, working construction for a buddy in between, tours. I was waiting tables, at a diner, in town, like, so I was working and listening to a lot of stuff and diving into this stuff. And it's kind of your, blue collar work and music.
Right.
And so I was relating to a lot of it. I was going through different stuff with my wife at the time because we were dating still. And
Right.
so things were messy here and there. And so there's those heartbreak songs that just like rip you in half, but they're so good. You have to listen to them 20 times over. And so like, there was just so many things with a lot of the old stuff that I really, I don't know, just connected with. Yeah.
Right.
And so a lot of my writing just, I think kind of just kept evolving from there with it. And so, yeah, so the outlaw country thing, it's interesting. I mean, I again, like to each their own. Some people might call what I do outlaw country. Some people might just call it, country music or honky tonk or roots music or alt country,
Right.
red dirt. There's so much. But yeah, I think it's just the guys nowadays. It's just really the guys that are trying to keep that, like you said, OG
Right.
feeling alive,
It's like listening to
So,
or listening to music on the radio, and I'm like, man, there's what they do, run out of lyrics. Are there no more
Yeah.
lyrics in the universe, or
Yeah.
or even beats? Because I grew up playing basketball in the hood with all the brothers, and that the music I grew up on was like Earth, Wind and Fire, Grandmaster Flash, and the Furious Five, and today
Yeah.
you listen to that music, it's like they're just using they're sampling their music, and
Totally.
yeah, it's like what they do, learn how to write music or something like that.
No, in totally. I mean, I think there's a lot of that, for me being a guy that really loves the art and craft of writing a song,
Right.
when you do kind of hear that stuff that's just like so blah, sometimes it just comes out on the radio. I mean, you can tell what's from the heart and what's not. And
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, again, like there's some stuff that's on the radio. Brad Paisley, that dude can rip.
Right.
I mean, that guy's a phenomenal guitar player. Great player. He can write great songs. So there are some guys out there that are really, in it, on that top 40 level that I think are great. But
Right.
there is a lot of crap out there too, like we all know. And
Yeah.
it is what it is.
So I have to ask you, because I towards the end of my career,
Yeah.
they made me teach English. I was like, oh, are you kidding me? I went to university to get a phys ed degree, so I would never have to teach English. But here I am teaching English. So I would teach poetry unit, and I don't know if you're a good songwriter. Are you generally good in English or good in poetry, or can you remember what you were like as a student?
Yeah, dude, not really. Yeah, that's the problem. Not really. I wasn't a great English student, so no. I like to think that I can write a decent song, but I wasn't a good English student necessarily. I just didn't want to be in high school, like at the time. Like I
Right.
remember going to class and just being like, a couple of the guys I played in bands with at the time, they were a little bit older, and I just remember being like, man, I wanted to go play in my band. Like I didn't want to be in school. What did I need to be in school for?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
but I got through it. And I think I don't think you have to be great at it. I think you have to just want to just learn and learn as much as you can, but also just you have to want to fail too. You have to like understand that you're going to write some really bad songs,
Right.
and hopefully in those bad songs you're going to get a keeper,
Yep.
or you might get half a keeper, that like could turn into a keeper.
Yep.
And I think for me that took me a long time, where even today, like I don't just wake up and write a song. Sometimes they come, and they come at crazy times, and I think a lot of songwriters will say that, but it happens for everybody differently. For me, it's a lot of really working on a song, and takes time, and to get it to feel right, and the words and the feeling and the chord progressions you're playing with it or whatnot. But yeah, I think for me, it just, to kind of really, it took a lot of time. I don't think it's just a lot of practice and time, and
You're
I'm still
10,000
learning.
hours.
Yeah, man, I'm still way behind. I'm still learning all the time and whatnot. But I love, I love to read. I like to try to write little snippets here and there, even if it's not a full song. If you
Right.
could throw together, maybe it is a poem that comes out, or maybe it's just a few lines and, and stuff. I keep a lot of that, whether it's in
Yeah.
my, the smartphones are great for it, little memo pads and stuff. I use that all the time and
Right.
try to go back through and, just, right here on my desk, I'm just like, notebooks of just like, just gibberish. I'm sure if I opened it up, some of it might make sense, but yeah, it's just, I think everybody's different. For me, I feel like I'm just, I'm my own worst critic. I'll beat a song to death until I'm just like, all right, now I got to kind of now I got to get it out and play it,
Right.
and let it evolve in that way,
Right.
and get it out. And a lot of it, to me, I think also happens once you get an idea and you're happy with it, then kind of as a songwriter or a performer, take it live when we could,
Right.
at least, and try it out in front of people. And
Yeah.
that to me would also kind of be a telling sign, like, people are relating to this, or they like it, or maybe there is no response. Maybe people don't like it, or
Right.
maybe it makes you feel a different way to play it live. But
right.
I don't know. Hopefully that
It sounds, it's, you know what, I'm sitting here listening to you and how you take your songs live, and that's like, man, that sounds just like a comedian going out there.
Totally.
Yeah, it's like, you write your jokes, write your songs, you go out there, play them to a small audience, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a keeper. Nah, I'm not going to play that one again, or
Totally. That's a hard job. Yeah. I don't think I could do that. I mean, people, I think, say that about playing, being like, oh, I could never get up and play just a guitar and by myself.
Right.
Being a comedian, but really similar for sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna hypothesize that musicians don't seem to have the mental health issues. Some of them may. Some of them may.
Yeah.
Some of them. Yeah, because in my years as an educator, I would we would talk about mental health in health class and that sort of stuff, and we would talk about, this is the face of mental health issues. Robin Williams, Chris Farley, Howie Mandel, that sort of stuff. And these guys are comedians and they struggle, and they didn't come out on the winning end. Howie Mandel, he hasn't done anything yet, but it's, at least he's out there sharing. Because up here in Canada, our Bell Canada, they have a thing on a specific day in the year. It's called what's it called? Text Talk, something like that, for mental health. And so a certain amount of money for every text put through the cellular system goes to mental health. Yeah, so you know what? We're really not supposed to use cell phones in school, but on that day, it's like, yeah, don't text anybody in another class, but text whomever you want.
Yeah, blast them out there. That's neat.
And then I don't know. Geez, they must raise about $8 million a year or something like that, or on that day. Yeah, everybody in Canada, whoever's texting on the Bell network, which is most of it. So they do a fundraiser that way. Now, you were talking about when you were getting out on the road and that sort of stuff. So as a musician, what are you doing in your career? Because you know what? Listeners don't know this, but
it's almost a comical question as it is. Yeah, but go ahead.
What are you doing to better yourself during the pandemic, Lorin?
Oh, there you go. No,
like not that question.
Yeah, no, I like the way it ended. I mean, at first it was like, what are you doing? Well, I'm not doing jack because I can't really go anywhere. But no, to better myself.
Are you out of your pajamas today?
I actually I have some sweats on today still. I was still in dad mode when I came onto the call. But to better myself as a musician and the time I've had, I think a lot of it for me, coming out of, myself, when I was 19, I really dove right into touring and wanting to be out on the road, playing gigs every night and doing that. And I really did that really, really strong up until probably about 2 years ago.
Right.
When we had our little boy, and kind of slowed down a little bit, but was still, even those last 2 years, that 1 year up until the pandemic, really, was gigging a lot still and staying really active and all of that. So I think for me was really help better myself as a musician is actually having some time away from it and being able to kind of recharge. There was years, when we came up to Canada, and stayed with you guys, I think in 2014 it was, I think, or maybe 2015, excuse me, it was, I mean, I was playing 200 plus days a year, maybe 250 or more, and just all the time, which is great, but also trying to keep a band intact, 3 or 4 other guys, that I was trying to make sure they were making ends meet, and just, day after day after day. So I was getting pretty burnt out.
I was going to say that's a grind, because like, you're booking your own shows too, right?
And booking all of the stuff. Josh, my brother, he did help me there for a stint when I started doing my solo project about 7-8 years ago. He jumped in about 2014 2013, somewhere around there, and helped. We kind of worked together for about a year and a half, maybe 2 years, and so he helped me book some stuff. But yeah, I mean, over really the majority of the last 15 years, or so, I've been just booking it all and just doing, and doing it DIY myself. So yeah, it felt like I was getting to this point where I was really grateful for that time when my son was born,
right?
To kind of sit back, and I was like, wow, I can kind of do this. And I have a wife who has a great career and a great work ethic. I mean, it's tough to be married to her some days because she works so damn hard. And like, I'm so grateful for that. And so, when he was born, I was like, okay, I'm able to kind of take a little bit of a step back and whatnot. And then when the pandemic hit, it just was taken away from me. But at the same time, at first, the first little while was like, okay, I can deal with this. It's not going to be too long. We're going to get a hold on this. And then, this is a nice little reset. This will be a great little reset, recharge. And so for me, that felt like I was kind of getting back to like where I was like, okay, like I'm feeling excited to get back to playing again. I was not feeling like I had to write songs. Sometimes when you're touring or in that tour mode and show mode, you also feel like, wow, I'm playing, maybe I'm doing the bar scene for a tour, or the majority of a tour of shows. So you're playing maybe 2 or 3 hours a night. And so you're playing a lot of material. And so then I would get to this point mentally for a lot of years where it's like, you need fresh stuff all the time, or like the guys in the band, they're sick of playing the same stuff. So they want you to like, hey dude, where's the new song? Like, I'm sick of playing the same stuff every night for 3 hours. Like, what do you have? But you're driving the van and you're still booking the shows, and then you're still making sure everybody's got some money in their pocket, whatever. So it was tough, and again, going back to what I said earlier, I'm still jotting ideas down. I'm more inspired to write and in that when I'm on the road and when I'm meeting people and playing the shows, and that I feel like I'm really inspired. But yeah, it doesn't happen right away. You're not writing songs all the time. So to have a little time again is what I was getting at, to feel like I'm just writing songs because I enjoy writing songs and it's what I love to do. It was really nice. And to not feel like I had to rehearse for the next gig and put together the next, couple months or whatever. So that made me feel like a little bit better of a person and musician to have some time. But then as this thing's kept going and going and going, as we know, for the last 12 months and more, now I'm missing it and whatnot, and really itching to get back at it. But so if still going to be at least a couple months for me.
If you're a prolific songwriter, you have like 365 new songs then, right?
Right, exactly. And that's what I mean. And for me, I've just got a handful, but I've been able to really find that time and also finding that balance between being a dad and being, being a husband. I've been lucky to pick up a little bit of remote work and some projects here and there as well, between the last year during the pandemic too. So it's been good, but I've been able to find that time to where I've been able to stay, inspired and I feel like artistic and motivated to write songs and kind of get back to just like, this is what I like to do. And, when I do get back out and do it, hopefully here in the next, hopefully soon, as things are kind of starting to lift here and there. And we're hearing about music coming back more and more, especially here in the States. Yeah, I mean, it'll feel good, but hopefully I can get back to it and not feel that pressure of getting burnt out so quick.
Right.
So
you were talking about working on some projects. So some of the cool things, because I've watched or listened, are like some of the music festivals or with other musicians online. It's kind of cool, and then people can leave tips and that sort of stuff. And yeah, so how did that come about? Because I'm sure pre-pandemic that stuff did not exist.
Yeah, no. Well, first I got to say thank you just directly to you, because you've been very supportive of that, and like checking out the shows and the performances, and I appreciate that, man, a lot. And I really do. And because it's an interesting time for that, and that was a whole new thing to me when they started happening. And yeah, but going pre-pandemic, I mean, you would see, as Facebook added, and I don't know when they added it, maybe in the last couple of years, the live feature. I know that's within the last 2 or 3 years. YouTube has it as well now. And obviously Instagram. And so you would see, pre-pandemic, you would see musicians and songwriters and bands, even maybe at a gig or at a bar, somebody would set up their phone and turn on the live or whatever. But it wasn't the same thing as we would see when the pandemic started. People couldn't go to live, see live music. So yeah, beforehand it was here and there, but there was this different tone about it. Once the pandemic hit, it became just the only way, for anybody to connect with their favorite, songwriters or musicians and artists. And so that thing just spread like a wildfire. I mean, being that like my network, when I get on Facebook or I, check on Instagram, it's primarily people I've met through music over the years, and musicians and songwriters. And I mean, it was, the pandemic hit and this kind of started, and people would do these live feeds, and they create a virtual tip jar in their description. And you would see, I mean, people were streaming around the clock, for a while, maybe a month or two. And then it kind of just slowed up. But I kind of started to jump into it. I didn't go at it right away. And I didn't do it as much as some people. Some people were streaming every night from their homes and doing personal concerts, which is great. I kind of chose to sit back, and I did a few here and there, and they were awesome. People were so generous. Like you said, with the tips and the virtual tip jar, I didn't expect anything. I wanted to get on and play, and missed playing songs and for playing for people, and I thought I would try it out, and just was really blown away from just the kindness of people that checked out what I was doing. And then people started these, in 2020, I had already booked pre-pandemic. I had booked probably maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 festivals throughout the US, scattered throughout. And as those were getting canceled, further into the pandemic, people were starting to be, well, why don't we turn this into, a music festival online, and we'll do the same lineup, and we'll have the set time slots, and so those evolved, and so that's kind of how I started doing it. And we jump on and I do a set, followed by somebody else. And so those were really cool. And, it's leveled out. I mean, people aren't doing them as much. The last one I did last month around Valentine's Day was a really cool one. People were starting to pre-record their sets as opposed to just going live, so that they could really film it with more high quality visual and audio. So, I did that a little bit. I got my wife down in the basement, with the tripod, helping me out, take some shots and whatever. And I've got a little home studio set up here in my basement. And so that was a lot of fun. But, I definitely want to do some more of that stuff myself, even just in the future, post pandemic and whatnot, and special occasions and what. But it was crazy. Yeah, it was wild to see it really take off how it has for people. I mean, I've seen everybody from just, small independent artists like myself to, major names, people jumping on and doing a live stream, for free.
Yeah.
So it's been really cool though. And I think it's really, for all I was going to say with that was just the artists and musicians who haven't been able to get out there and play for people. I think it's great. I think we're really lucky that we have the technology to be able to do it,
it's crazy. I mean, yeah. Like in my wife's work, she's been called back to work. We were texting back and forth, and she was a manager, and for years and years and years, she would have staff members ask about working from home. And, the higher ups, higher than Sean, would say, oh no, you can't do that. You have to come to the office. It's like, yeah, well, you know what? It's 2021. Do I have to come to the office now? Because I've been working from home for the last year. Sean was reading a thing on one of our national newspapers. The city of Toronto lost over 50,000 people from the population moving out to the country. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, wow. How far I am from Toronto, an hour.
Sure.
We're thinking of buying a house. So there's a we found a house on an acre way out in the country, almost another hour from us. And we put a bid on the house. We raised the bid a little bit. It sold out there for $131,000 more than what they were asking. I was telling Josh this, it's like, this is like 2 hours from Toronto.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Wow.
I don't know what's 2 hours from Salt Lake City down to the south.
Where Josh lives now, Josh just bought a house.
Yeah.
So Josh lives out in a place called Price, but he's at about exactly 2 hours from Salt Lake. So if you go in a 2 hour radius, you're going to hit west, you're going to hit Wyoming, you're going to hit the border of Wyoming, a little bit more, southeast is kind of where Josh is at, which is you kind of get out on your way out towards Colorado is kind of where Josh is. So
right.
The border of Colorado is about 4 hours from Salt Lake. And so Josh is literally halfway.
Right.
And then 2 hours south, you're just in a little town called Fillmore, Utah, which is just, middle of nowhere down on the interstate as you're going kind of towards Las Vegas and you're going south. And then 2 hours the other way, if you're going east, you're going to just be out just about to Nevada, right over on the Salt Flats.
Right.
So I mean, we're not out in any super pretty country, probably not like where you're talking about.
Oh no, man.
That sounds
well, it's just farm country.
Yeah.
But you know what? Sean and I have we watch some stuff on YouTube and it's like, I want to take her down there. There's this trail in Utah, White something road or something. It's like the toughest road in all of the U.S., this guy says. And he, it says you should have 4-wheel drive, but he did it in his off-road Volkswagen Westphalia. And he went up this one grade and he got to the top of it and he's coming back for his camera and he goes, I don't think I'm going to do stuff like that again by myself, So I told Sean, I said, that would be such a cool trip to do. Just leave the trailer, do it in the truck. I talked to my mechanic and he goes, oh yeah, your truck? You could do that in your truck. But I kind of thought, have like a side-by-side or something like that. I don't know if there's a company nearby that rents side-by-sides, but it's about a 40-mile trip. It took this guy 2 days to do it. Like you got to go slow.
I gotta look this up. I'm gonna have to check this out. I bet Josh knows what.
This is. I think it's southwest. It's in the southwest.
Yeah, there's
But your country's beautiful. Like
no, and I didn't mean it like that. No, it is super beautiful. Plug in my charger here. No, it is. It honestly, I love where I live, and honestly, 2 hours anywhere is actually really pretty country.
Yeah.
But I'll have to look that up. That doesn't ring a bell, but there's places out here. Yeah, you could totally get a side-by-side, I'm sure, and rent it out and probably do it in something like that. But there's so much great stuff out here. And within a couple hours. I mean, I was going to say even 2.5, 3 hours, you're getting into like Moab.
Right.
And all of those parks and Canyonlands. Even in other directions, you're hitting some other great national parks. So we're blessed. I mean, super lucky.
Yeah.
I'm making it seem like we're not.
Well, you know what? When you're living in it, you don't pay attention to it, right? Like,
no, sometimes no, but see, I look back at like what I'm saying. It's like, you're just like you're in Wyoming, or like, you're out at the Salt Flats. I'm like, that stuff's pretty cool. I mean, honestly, I like the Salt Flats are really cool, and honestly, Wyoming is one of those places here. To me, a lot of people just blow right past it. They don't think too much about it, even though it's a big state, but. There is. I mean, you mentioned it earlier. There's so many great places to go fish and, great places out there. So we're lucky. We're really lucky where we live.
Yeah.
So you're moving, or is that what I was going to say?
Well,
you're thinking about it?
Thinking about it. Yeah. My mom got really sick and she ended up passing away last July. But exactly a year ago on March 6th. Anyways, my dad got a new knee. And then 3 days before that, my mom had one of her final chemo treatments. And I think the old warriors thought they could lean on each other. And I said, it was World Telemark Day the next day. And I was like, I got an event to run, but Sean and I will come and we'll spend the weekend with you. Well, we spent 10 days with them. And I'm like, they live in a 2-story. My mom had a new knee done several years ago. With her health, the stairs were pretty much killing her. You know, she lived upstairs, you know, and I was like, yeah, this isn't pretty. I don't want to be like this because I got a really bad arthritic knee. And so it's like, well, let's take a look at it. Because I used to build houses, and so and my body's really beat up. I'm working on a project I've been working on for a year. And, you know, sometimes I come home and I'm like, oh, damn, I'm thinking about building a house. But you know what? If the right house fell in our laps, I'd buy it, just like this one that we saw. And so we're looking at that, but the prices are out of the world. And then, so the other alternative is to build. But up here, you guys down there have to stop building so many freaking homes because you're driving the lumber prices too high.
You're telling me. My wife and I were trying to get started on a project in our house. We moved and sold our first place that we moved into when we got married in 2015. It was a great place. It was a townhome. They were new, more space than we needed, but we had just lucked out, and we had run into some people who know her sister during this last summer. And long story short, we ended up getting into a spot in this area of Salt Lake City that we've talked about for years. We would have loved to be in, and that was really it. The neighborhood was really the area was what sold it for us. And having the little guy now and all of that, you're thinking way longer, you know, term. And so, you know, as we got into this house, it's a little older. It was built in 1953. There's some things that we'd love to update, you know, and the lumber prices are absurd right now. I mean, we're talking to, you know, a couple contractors here and there about doing this, and, you know, the prices are nuts. Like you said, it's crazy.
Well, I was reading an article by an economist about it, and he was saying that the foresters would get $400 for 1,000 board feet of lumber. So I don't know if you know what a board foot is. It's 12 inches by 12 inches by 1 inch thick. Now they're getting $1,000 for 1,000 board feet. So it's gone up 2.5 times. And I was helping my daughter build the chicken coop last spring, and a piece of 3/8 plywood cost me $15 last year at this time. This year it's $48.
Oh,
yeah,
goodness.
Yeah, so I was talking to another contractor today, and I said, "You're working in this all the time, way more than I am. What do you think?" And he goes, "The only way that you can get ahead is if you buy a fixer-upper." And it's like, oh, man, because I've been working on a fixer-upper for the last year for my buddy. It's 120 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it's taken us a long time. COVID held us up. But and I've been pretty much doing most of the work myself lately. We're working together because it's a 2-person job in some of the stuff that we're doing. But the floor joists are 12 by 12, spaced 48 inches apart. My buddy can't wrap his head around how this house was built. I said, it's built like a barn, and none of the interior walls are weight bearing.
Oh.
Yeah, so upstairs I got right back to the original wall separating 2 bedrooms at the time, and all it was 2-inch thick barn board, and on either side of it was whitewashed canvas. That was the original wall covering.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. And the studs in some of the walls, I've collected the best ones, and they're 2 inches by 14 inches, and they're set sideways in the wall, and then lathing is nailed onto it, and then plaster on top. And I was like, I couldn't throw this lumber away, so I harvested it and gave it to my kids, and they've been making projects out of it, and nice shelves and bar tops, and you know, the wood's 120 years old.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of character. Yeah, so yeah, working on that project. That, you know, some days I'm like, oh man, I am so beat up. But I'm not working. I'm not working 5 days a week. When I work 5 days a week for Ernie, I'm all right. But it's like, because we're doing jobs that require 2 people, it's like 1 or 2 days a week right now. It's like, Ernie, you're killing me with this, with this schedule.
Is it close to you, or you drive pretty far
40
for that
minutes.
project?
Yeah, it's
Okay,
not far. Yeah, it's a nice drive out in the hills to the east of us. Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah. So
That sounds like a good project, though. I mean, a 120-year-old house. That sounds like it's got
there's some
some
cool.
interesting things. There's some interesting things going on.
Oh yeah, we haven't found any treasure or dead bodies. We're kind of disappointed. We figure like not even any
There's got to
dead
be
animals.
something.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway,
That's cool. That's
yeah.
really cool.
So what do you have on coming up? Any projects? Or I know that you're helping Josh with the shop because we're on the work chats and I see you being the taskmaster and say, hey, we need a closing vid or whatever.
Yeah. That's been a great, and I'm super grateful to Josh for that. So big ups to him for the help with that this year. Just because, as his season was getting rolling this year, they kind of needed someone to help out with some of the social media and some of the visual and audio stuff. And I've got a home studio space, and so kind of editing video. I've done a few of those myself, and just little things in here and there. So it's been fun to help those guys out at the Free Hill Life, and keeps me a little bit busy, which has been fun. So it's been a good little extra something this year. So that's been fun projects for me right now. Kind of like I said, the house. That's kind of the first thing right now on the home front. We're getting ready to kind of
what are your plans?
Dive into it.
What are your plans?
Well, we're going to really right now, I think we're just going to kind of start with our kitchen and our living room area upstairs. It is just like this really awesome shade of like mustard yellow formica that's like, my wife loves it. And so we're just, we're trying to start there with the kitchen and do a couple things up there. So it's going to take us a few months. I think we're going to dive into that here probably in the springtime, sometime maybe in April, hopefully. But as far as like, music projects and kind of that side of things, I've got another festival coming up that I'm getting ready to shoot for. And so that's going to be for a festival sometime in April. So I'll definitely, keep you posted and make some posts from my social media about it. But
tell people where they can find you on social media while we're on that.
Sure. Yeah, so my music, you can find it, any of the streaming platforms, iTunes and Spotify. If you just search for Lorin Walker Madsen, Facebook, same thing. I think it's just / Lorin Walker Madsen, and on Instagram, my handle is official_LWM on there, so you can kind of keep up to date on stuff there. So getting ready to really just dive into a couple of those online festivals and. I know things are, pretty different between Canada and the US and kind of, where we're at with regulations, or what's going on there. So right now, here in Utah, they're getting ready to lift all of our mask mandates, here, I think at the 11th of April, and then a lot of it's going to be up to the business and what they want to do, whether they continue to enforce it or not. So people, throughout the pandemic, there have been places that have still been trying to keep live music, places that have had the doors open that have been trying to continue with that. So I've been, we've got the little guy at home.
Right.
We've had family members that are older and high risk and just things like that. We've been really playing it careful. So I haven't, played out in a year as far as live, but I'm hoping to kind of get the ball rolling again, maybe this summer, kind of starting to look at it, actually have an appointment to get a vaccination for myself, my wife. And so we're hoping to get that rolling. And as more people do, we'll kind of see where that goes. But it seems like things are starting to move in that direction and in live music. So we'll see. I mean, fingers crossed. I think everybody has that hope that it's gonna last and we're not gonna end up in a bigger hole. But I'm hoping to kind of get back to that. So right now, just kind of staying busy with what I can, a couple home recording projects and writing with, before the pandemic, I was hoping to lay down a new album. So hopefully we'll kind of get back to that. And some of the new stuff I've been working on, hopefully put that on a record. But
now people can find your music on Spotify, right? I think.
Yeah. So you can find it on Spotify. I think I've got four releases up there,
right.
And then iTunes as well. Some people like to listen on Amazon Music, or there's some other platforms, but really wherever you're streaming music. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah,
So hopefully we'll have a couple fun music projects and some gigs coming up. I think it might be a little while before we're back on the road,
right.
touring and doing it full swing, but
Right.
Baby steps.
Right.
So
You need my trailer.
dude,
The whole
take
band
it. That
could
sounds
sleep
great.
in it. You could load all the gear in the back.
Done deal.
I'll drive.
Twice.
I'll drive the bus for you, man.
Dude, that sounds great. That was I think, when having a driver, like I love to drive. Driving is like my peace. It's like where I, clear my mind. I do a lot of writing, even in my head. Gosh, I mean, we went to Europe in 2018 and we had a driver for that tour.
Oh, did you?
It was the greatest thing I think I've ever experienced, just being able to like not have to drive,
right.
and having that choice. So I might take, maybe I'll take you up on that one of these days. I'll know that I've really made it, quote unquote, when Keith is driving the bus around.
All right, I promise. You know what? Even if we load the band into the trailer and just go around the block, man. Nobody has to know. We'll take all the pictures.
That sounds good to me right now. I'll take it.
All right. Thanks so much for being part of this. I guess this is how I better myself during the pandemic. So
I think it's great. And I appreciate you having me on. It's great to catch up with you. I mean,
oh yeah.
Like you said, I think it's been almost 5 years or so.
Yeah. We just keep touch through social media anyway. But I love seeing the pictures of Liam, and especially that one today when he grew that mustache.
Oh man. Oh geez. He is just, they do though. They grow up fast, as they say. So.
Yeah. I know one of mine, she's going to be having a baby on May the 15th, maybe. So I think I messaged you that I was going to be a grandfather. So we'll see.
This will be grandkid number 1.
Numero uno.
That's awesome, man. Congrats. That's so great.
Well, I always think people say, "So, are you excited?" And I'm like, I think maybe it's a woman thing or a grandma thing. Yeah, it's like, give me the kid when he's 4 or 5 or she. then we'll have fun.
Yeah. He's he was, he's our first, and it was a blast as a baby, and those were a lot of fun times. But he's coming up on 2, and you can already, he's so fun. I mean, every day he's just more and more fun, and more things, light bulbs turning on in his head, and he loves to be outside. He likes to go fishing with dad, and touch the fish and all that. So I think 4 or 5, it's going to be a blast. I don't doubt you.
Yeah,
that's a good age.
Well, you have a good evening, Lorin. Thanks again for being on the show.
Hey, thank you so much. It's great catching up, Keith. I appreciate you having me on.
All right. Have a good evening.
Hey, you too.
A huge thank you for my friend Lorin Walker Madsen for joining me on this episode of the Skippy Report. Check back later for another episode.